The morning after the challenge, Doyen woke to find his door blocked by security guards. They were Valak soldiers, each one standing perfectly still in their dark blue armor. One of them handed him a data tablet without saying a word. The message on the tablet was formal and cold. It listed the rules of the duel. Doyen read through them slowly while drinking his morning coffee. The duel would take place in 3 days at noon. The Grand Arena would be the location. The Emperor himself would attend, along with his court and whoever else wanted to watch. Given that the duel would be broadcast across the entire Valak's empire, that meant billions of viewers. The combat would continue until one fighter drew first blood, knocked the other unconscious, or killed them. Yielding was permitted but considered deeply shameful. The challenge party, which was Doyen, could choose the weapons. The challenger, Thelvax, had already made his preference known. He wanted to use Corvesh blades. Doyen set down his coffee and pulled up information about Corvesh blades on his personal computer. What he found was not encouraging. The weapons were traditional Valak swords, curved and double-edged. They were nearly 4 feet long and required both hands to wield properly. Masters of the Corvesh style trained for decades to achieve true skill. The fighting style emphasized speed, precision, and aggressive attacks. It was beautiful to watch and deadly to face. Doyen had never held a Corvesh blade in his life. There was a knock on his door. Park Ji-won entered, carrying a stack of data files. She looked tired, like she had not slept. She probably had not. I brought everything I could find on Valak's combat techniques, she said, setting the files on his desk. Also medical reports on their physiology, recordings of previous duels, and a tactical analysis of Commander Thelvax's fighting style. You have been busy, Doyen said. Someone has to keep you alive, Ji-won replied. She sat down across from him. Sir, with respect, what were you thinking last night? Doyen considered the question. I was thinking that humanity needs to stop running. There is a difference between courage and suicide. Is there? Doyen asked. Every species in this galaxy thinks we are weak. They tolerate us because we are useful, but they do not respect us. If I had refused that challenge, it would have confirmed everything they believe about humans. And if you die in that arena, what will that confirm? That we tried, Doyen said simply. That matters too. Ji-won was quiet for a moment. Then she opened one of the data files. I served with you for 2 years before this posting. I know you are good at what you do, but Thelvax is not human. He is stronger than you, faster than you, and he has been fighting since before you were born. I know. Then how do you plan to win? Doyen looked at the information on Corvesh blades still displayed on his screen. I do not plan to win. I plan to survive. There is a difference? Yes, Doyen said. Winning means being better than him. Surviving means refusing to quit. I can do one of those things. Ji-won studied his face. You have a plan. The beginning of one, Doyen admitted. Tell me, what do you know about Valak's biology? She pulled up another file. And they are reptilian, cold-blooded, which means they are sensitive to temperature changes. Their muscles are dense and powerful, but they fatigue faster than mammalian muscles under sustained exertion. They have excellent reaction times and natural armor from their scales. And their weaknesses? Endurance, Ji-won said immediately. Valak's warriors are built for short, explosive combat. Their entire fighting philosophy is based on overwhelming opponents quickly. In every duel I watched, Thelvax ended the fight in under 10 minutes. Because his opponents always tried to match his strength, Doyen said. Yes. What if someone did not try to match him? What if someone made the fight last longer? Understanding dawned on Ji-won's face. You want to tire him out. Humans are not stronger or faster than Valaks, Doyen said. But we can keep going longer. Our ancestors hunted prey by chasing it until it collapsed from exhaustion. We are built for endurance. That is a very dangerous strategy, Ji-won warned. You will have to survive his attacks long enough for fatigue to become a factor. One good hit from a Corvesh blade could end you. Then I will not get hit, Doyen said. It sounded more confident than he felt. The rest of the day was spent studying. Doyen watched every recording of Thelvax fighting that Ji-won had found. There were 17 duels on file dating back 30 years. In every single one, the commander was magnificent. His blade work was perfect, his movements were precise, and his aggression was terrifying. But Doyen noticed patterns. Thelvax always attacked the same way. He would start with testing strikes, probing his opponent's defenses. Then he would identify a weakness and exploit it ruthlessly. The fights were usually over within minutes. That evening, Ambassador Kang came to see him. She looked even more tired than Jiwon. Earth Command has been in contact, she said without preamble. They want to extract you from this situation. How? Doyen asked. Diplomatic channels. We could claim that the challenge was made under duress. We could argue that you did not understand the full implications. We could lie, Doyen finished. We could lie and make humanity look even weaker than before. Kang slumped into a chair. You are determined to do this? Yes. Why? Doyen thought about his answer carefully. Because someone has to. Humanity has been in this galaxy for 5 years now. 5 years of being the newcomers, even the weak ones, the species that everyone protects or ignores. If we want to be taken seriously, we have to prove ourselves. By dying in an arena? By not giving up, Doyen corrected. Win or lose, the galaxy will see that humans fight, that we do not run. That matters. Kang rubbed her eyes. Earth Command wants me to stop you. They are very insistent about this. Will you? She was quiet for a long time. No, she finally said. I disagree with your decision, but I will not stop you. Just try not to get killed. I will do my best, Doyen promised. On the second day, Doyen requested access to a training facility. The Valix authorities granted his request, probably because they wanted him to have at least some preparation. It would make the duel more interesting. They gave him a small chamber in the lower levels of the palace. It was meant for junior guards to practice. The room was barely 20 feet across, with padded floors and walls. A weapons rack held practice versions of various Valix weapons, including Corvesh blades. Doyen picked up one of the practice blades. It was lighter than he expected, but still awkward in his hands. He tried a few basic strikes, the kind he had seen in the recordings. They felt clumsy and wrong. You hold it incorrectly, said a voice from the doorway. Doyen turned. A Valix stood there, smaller than Thelvax but still imposing. His scales were lighter green, almost gray. He wore no uniform, just simple robes. Who are you? Doyen asked. My name does not matter, the Valix said. I came to watch the human who accepted a death challenge. I wanted to see if you were brave or simply stupid. Have you decided? Not yet, the Valix said. He stepped into the room. May I offer advice? Please. Do not try to fight like a Valix. You will fail. Your body is not built for our techniques. The blade will betray you. Then what should I do? The Valix studied him. Commander Thelvax is a great warrior. He has trained his entire life for glory in combat. He expects opponents to fight for glory as well. But you are not fighting for glory, are you? No, Doyen admitted. I am fighting to survive. Good, the Valix said. Then forget about the blade. Forget about looking impressive. Focus only on not dying. There is no shame in defense, no matter what others might say. Why are you helping me? Doyen asked. The Valix smiled slightly. Because I am curious. No off-worlder has accepted a challenge like this in 3 centuries. I want to see what happens when someone fights without the burden of Valix honor traditions. He left without another word. Doyen spent the rest of the day practicing, but he did not practice attacking. He practiced moving, dodging, and keeping his distance. He practiced falling and getting back up quickly. He practiced holding the blade defensively, using it to deflect rather than strike. It was not glorious, it was not impressive, but it might keep him alive. On the 3rd day, the morning of the duel, Doyen woke before dawn. He could not sleep anyway. He went through his exercise routine, the same one he had done every morning for the past 10 years. Push-ups, sit-ups, running in place. Nothing fancy, just preparation. Park Ji-won brought him breakfast. She did not say much. There was nothing left to say. At 10 in the morning, the guards came for him. They escorted him through the palace corridors toward the arena. Doyen could hear the crowds already gathering, their voices echoing through the stone halls. Ambassador Kang met him just outside the arena entrance. The Emperor has arrived, wash, she said. The broadcast has already started. Half the galaxy is watching. Good, Doyen said. Good? If I am going to do this, I want everyone to see it. Kang looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She hugged him. Do not die, Captain. she said quietly. Please? I will try, Doyen said again. The guards opened the massive doors to the arena. Sunlight poured in, bright and hot. Beyond it, Doyen could see the arena floor, the crowds in the stands, and across from him, Commander Thelvax, waiting with his blade already drawn. Doyen took a deep breath and walked forward into the light. The grand arena was bigger than Doyen had imagined. The oval floor stretched almost 200 feet across, covered in fine sand that had been raked into perfect patterns. Around the arena rose tier after tier of seats, climbing so high that the upper levels seemed to touch the sky. Every seat was full. Doyun had never seen so many aliens in one place. There were Valaks, of course, thousands of them in their formal robes and military uniforms. But there were others too, representatives from dozens of species, all gathered to watch what would likely be a very short fight. The noise was overwhelming. Voices in 100 languages blended into a constant roar, where Doyun could feel the weight of all those eyes on him as he walked toward the center of the arena. Across from him, Commander Thelvax stood waiting. The commander had removed his ceremonial armor and now wore only simple combat clothing. His scales gleamed in the sunlight. In his hands he held a Corvesh blade, the metal so polished it reflected the sky like a mirror. An official stood between them, a Valak's elder in deep purple robes. He raised his hands and the crowd slowly fell silent. We are gathered here to witness a duel of honor, the elder announced, his voice amplified to reach every corner of the arena. Commander Thelvax of the Royal Guard has issued a challenge. Captain Handoyan of Earth has accepted. The duel will proceed under traditional law. Combat continues until first blood, incapacitation, or death. Yielding is permitted but carries shame. Do both parties understand? I understand, Thelvax said. I understand, Doyen replied. The elder gestured to a weapons rack that had been placed at the center of the arena. The challenged party may select his weapon. Doyen walked to the rack. There were many choices, different types of blades, staffs, even some firearms designed to fire non-lethal rounds. He could choose any of them. He could even choose to fight unarmed if he wanted. But Thelvax had chosen Corvesh blades. If Doyen chose something else, the commander would see it as fear. The crowd would see it as weakness. Doyen picked up one of the Corvesh blades. It was heavier than the practice version he had used, the weight distributed differently. The edge was sharp enough to cut through bone. He tested the grip, adjusting his hands until it felt as comfortable as it was going to get, which was not very comfortable at all. The elder nodded. The weapons have been chosen. Combatants, take your positions. Doyen walked to his side of the arena. Thelvax took his position opposite. The distance between them was about 30 feet. The sand under Doyen's boots shifted slightly with each step. Above them, in the highest seat in the arena, sat the Emperor. Doyen could barely make out the figure from this distance, but he knew the Emperor was watching. Everyone was watching. The elder stepped back to the edge of the arena. He raised one hand high. Begin, he shouted and brought his hand down. Thelvax moved immediately. He crossed the distance between them in 3 powerful strides, his blade already in motion. The strike came from above, fast and precise, aimed at Doyen's shoulder. Doyen barely got his own blade up in time. The impact sent shock waves through his arms. He stumbled backward, his feet sliding in the sand. Thelvax did not pause. He pressed forward with another strike, then another. Each blow was perfectly controlled, testing Doyen's defenses. The commander's movements were fluid and beautiful, like a dance, but each strike carried enough force to split a human in half. Doyen backpedaled, focusing entirely on defense. He blocked one strike, deflected another, and dodged a third by throwing himself to the side. He hit the sand hard and rolled, barely avoiding a downward slash that would have pinned him to the ground. The crowd was cheering now, excited by the action. Doyen could hear them roaring approval for each of Thelvax's attacks. So he scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. They had been fighting for less than a minute and he was already struggling. Thelvax, in contrast, looked completely fresh. The commander's breathing had not even changed. You are faster than I expected, Thelvax said, advancing again. But speed will not save you. He attacked with a combination Doyen had seen in one of the recordings. High strike, low strike, thrust. Doyen managed to block the first two, but the thrust caught him on the left arm, tearing through his sleeve and drawing a line of blood across his skin. First blood. The duel could end now if Doyen yielded. He did not yield. Good, Thelvax said, seeing the blood. You have courage at least, but courage is not enough. The attacks continued. Doyen kept retreating, kept defending. He did not try to strike back. Every ounce of his concentration went into staying alive. Block, dodge, move. Block, dodge, move. It became a rhythm, mechanical and desperate. He could feel his muscles starting to burn. The Corvesh blade was heavy, and his arms were not used to this kind of sustained exertion. Sweat ran down his face, stinging his eyes. But he did not stop moving. Thelvax, meanwhile, was warming to the fight. His strikes came faster now, more aggressive. He was testing different angles, different combinations, looking for the opening that would end this. Doyen gave ground constantly. He circled around the arena, never staying in one place. When Thelvax pressed too hard, he would retreat completely, opening up distance before the commander could corner him. "Stand and fight," someone in the crowd yelled. "The human runs like prey," another voice shouted. Doyen ignored them. Let them think what they wanted. He was not here to look brave. He was here to survive. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Thelvax was still attacking with precision and power, but Doyen noticed something. The commander's breathing was getting heavier. Not by much, but it was there. The constant aggression was starting to cost him. Doyen, despite his exhaustion, felt a small spark of hope. His plan was working. Not quickly, but it was working. He continued his strategy. Defend, retreat, circle. Never commit to an attack. Never give Thelvax a stationary target. Just keep moving. Keep surviving. Keep making the commander work for every strike. At 15 minutes, something changed. Thelvax's attacks were still dangerous, still skilled, but they were slightly slower. With the gaps between combinations were a fraction of a second longer. The commander's scales, which had gleamed so brightly at the start, now looked dull and rough. Doyen was bleeding from half a dozen small cuts. His left arm hurt badly, and his legs felt like they were made of lead. But he was still standing, still moving, still fighting. The crowd had gone quieter now. The easy victory they expected had not materialized. This strange human, this supposedly weak creature, was still alive, still refusing to fall. Thelvax stepped back for a moment, lowering his blade slightly. He was breathing hard now, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "You fight like a coward," he said, his voice rough. "All defense. No honor." "I fight to survive," Doyen replied. "There is no shame in that." "There is every shame in it," Thelvax snapped. A true warrior seeks glory, not survival." "Then we have different definitions of a warrior," Doyen said. Something flickered in Thelvax's eyes. Anger, maybe, or frustration. The commander raised his blade again and charged. This time the attacks were different. Less controlled, more desperate. Thelvax was trying to end the fight quickly now, putting everything into powerful strikes meant to overwhelm Doyen's defenses. But powerful strikes required energy, and energy was something Thelvax was running out of. Doyen weathered the assault. He took more hits now, more cuts and bruises. His body was screaming at him to stop, to rest. But he did not stop, could not stop. 20 minutes, 25. The sun beat down on them. The sand under their feet was churned and scattered. Blood hit both Doyen's and small amounts from Thelvax's scraped scales, stained the white surface. At 30 minutes, Thelvax stumbled. It was a small thing. His foot slipped slightly in the sand, and his next strike went wide. But it was the first real mistake the commander had made since the duel began. Doyen saw it, saw the fatigue in Thelvax's movements, saw the way the commander's breath came in gasps now, saw the trembling in his arms as he raised the blade again. The hunter in Doyen, the part that had been trained to spot weakness, came alive. For the first time since the duel began, he stopped retreating. Thelvax's eyes widened slightly in surprise as Doyen stepped forward instead of back. The commander swung at him, but the strike was slow, predictable. Doyen ducked under it easily and moved inside Thelvax's guard. He could have struck with his blade, could have tried to slash at the commander's exposed torso. But that was not his plan. Instead, Doyen dropped his blade completely. His hands shot forward and struck Thelvax's lower ribs, right where Jawan's research had shown a major nerve cluster existed. The effect was immediate. Thelvax's right arm went numb, his fingers losing their grip on his blade. The weapon fell to the sand with a soft thud. The crowd gasped. Doyen retrieved his own blade and backed away again, giving Thelvax space. The commander stared at his right arm, trying to make it respond. His fingers twitched, but would not close properly. "What did you do?" Thelvax demanded. "I am surviving," Doyen said simply. Thelvax bent down and picked up his blade with his left hand. The movement was awkward, unfamiliar. He was right-handed. He had trained for decades using his right hand. Now that arm hung useless at his side, the fingers still twitching weakly. The crowd was silent, completely, utterly silent. 100,000 beings sat frozen, watching something they had never seen before. Commander Thelvax, the undefeated champion of the Royal Guard, had been disabled by a human. "Your arm will recover in a few minutes," Doyen said, still keeping his distance. "The nerve damage is temporary." "You knew exactly where to strike," Thelvax said, his voice carrying a note of something that might have been respect. "You studied our physiology." "Yes. This was your plan all along. Tire me out. Wait for an opening. Target our weaknesses." "Yes," Doyen said again. Thelvax adjusted his grip on his blade, testing how it felt in his left hand. "Just clever. Dishonorable, but clever." "I do not care about honor," Doyen replied. "I care about not dying." The commander laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "So you said. Very well, human. Let us see if your survival instinct is enough." He attacked again, this time using his left hand. The strikes were still dangerous, still powered by immense strength, but they lacked the precision of his right-handed attacks. Doyen found them easier to deflect, easier to dodge. But he was reaching his limits too. His body was covered in cuts and bruises. His left arm, where Thelvax had drawn first blood, throbbed with pain. His legs felt like they might give out at any moment. The difference was that Doyen had trained for this. His entire career, his entire life really, had been about pushing through pain. About continuing when his body screamed to stop. Humans were built for this kind of punishment. Their ancestors had hunted prey for days, running until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Doyen was not the fastest fighter. He was not the strongest. But he could keep going. That was his advantage. Thelvax's attacks became more desperate. The commander could feel himself weakening, and it frightened him. For the first time in his long career, victory was not certain. This human, this supposedly inferior being, was still standing. Still fighting. "Fall!" Thelvax roared, putting everything into a massive overhead strike. Doyen sidestepped, and the blade buried itself in the sand. Thelvax tried to pull it free, but his exhausted muscles could not manage it quickly enough. Doyen stepped in again and struck the same nerve cluster on the commander's ribs. Thelvax's left arm went numb now, too. He staggered backward, both arms hanging limp at his sides. His blade remained stuck in the sand. The crowd erupted, not in cheers but in shocked exclamations. Some were standing now, leaning forward to see better. This was impossible. This was not how duels went. Challengers died within minutes, overwhelmed by superior Valak strength and skill. But Han Doyen was not dead. Commander Thelvax was. "Yield," Doyen said quietly. "This fight is over." Thelvax's chest heaved as he struggled to breathe. His scales had gone pale, almost white. His legs trembled with the effort of staying upright. "I do not yield," he said through gritted teeth. "I have never yielded." "Then you are a fool," Doyen said. And there was no anger in his voice, just exhaustion. "There is no shame in knowing when you are beaten." "There is every shame," Thelvax shouted. "I am commander of the Royal Guard. I have fought 200 duels and won them all. I cannot be beaten by a human. I cannot." He tried to move forward, but his legs finally gave out. The commander fell to his knees in the sand, both arms still useless, his breathing ragged. Doyen walked over to where Thelvax's blade was stuck in the sand. He pulled it free and held it loosely in his hand. Then he walked to stand in front of the kneeling commander. He could end it now. One strike and the duel would be over. Thelvax could not defend himself, could not even raise his arms. The crowd held its breath. Doyen looked at the commander, really looked at him. He saw a warrior who had dedicated his entire life to combat, who had built his identity on being undefeatable, who was now facing the destruction of everything he believed about himself. Doyen understood that feeling. He had been there himself once, when his own limitations had nearly broken him. He reversed his grip on Thelvax's blade and held it out, offering it back to the commander. "Take your weapon," Doyen said. Thelvax stared at the blade. "I cannot. My arms do not work." "They will in a moment. The nerve damage is wearing off already. I can see your fingers moving." Indeed, Thelvax's hands were starting to respond again. The feeling was returning to his arms, though they still trembled with exhaustion. "Why?" Thelvax asked. "Why give me back my weapon? You have won." "Could finish it." "Because this was never about winning," Doyen said. "It was about proving that humans are not weak, about showing that we do not give up. I have done that. Everyone watching knows it now." He dropped the blade in front of Thelvax and stepped back, retrieving his own weapon. "When you can stand," Doyen said, "we will finish this properly, as warriors, not as an execution." Thelvax looked at him with an expression that was hard to read, confusion perhaps, or maybe understanding. Slowly, painfully, the commander reached for his blade. His fingers closed around the grip. The crowd watched in absolute silence as Thelvax used his blade to push himself to his feet. He swayed slightly, his legs still weak, but he managed to stand. For a long moment, the two fighters faced each other, both exhausted, both battered, both still holding their weapons. "I do not understand you, human," Thelvax said. "You fight without honor, but show mercy. You claim not to care about glory, but seek it anyway." "I do not seek glory," Doyen corrected. "I seek respect, for myself and my people. That is all." Thelvax was quiet. Then slowly he lowered his blade. The point touched the sand and he let it rest there. "You have it," the commander said. "My respect and my acknowledgement. You fought well, Han Doyen. Better than I expected. Better than I could have imagined." He looked up at the Emperor's box, then back at Doyen. "I yield," Thelvax said clearly. "The duel is yours." The words seemed to cost him everything. His shoulders slumped and his head bowed. For a proud warrior like Thelvax, yielding was worse than death. But he had done it. The arena exploded into noise. Some cheered. Some shouted in disbelief. Some simply sat in stunned silence. The elder official rushed forward, his purple robes flapping. "The duel is concluded," he announced. "Commander Thelvax has yielded. Victory goes to Captain Han Doyen of Earth." Doyen dropped his own blade and nearly fell. His legs finally gave out, and he sat down hard on the sand. Every part of his body hurt. He was bleeding from at least a dozen cuts. His left eye was swelling shut. His ribs ached with every breath. But he had won. No, not won. Survived. That was what mattered. Medical personnel rushed into the arena. Some went to Thelvax, others to Doyen. A Valix doctor knelt beside him and began examining his wounds. "Can you stand?" the doctor asked. "I think so," Doyen said. With help, he got to his feet. Across the arena, Thelvax was also being helped up. Their eyes met for a moment. The commander nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement. Doyen nodded back. The crowd was still loud, still processing what they had witnessed. Doyen looked up at the Emperor's box. The Emperor himself was standing now, looking down at the arena. At Doyen. Then slowly the Emperor brought his hands together in applause. It was the highest honor a Valix ruler could give. The Emperor was acknowledging not just the victory, but the way it had been achieved. One by one, others in the crowd began to applaud as well. It spread through the arena like a wave. Within moments, 100,000 beings were on their feet, clapping, cheering, roaring their approval. For Doyen, for the human who had refused to quit. Soon Ambassador Kang appeared at the entrance to the arena, rushing across the sand. Park Ji-won was right behind her. Both of them looked like they could not believe what they had just seen. "You did it," Kang said, her voice shaking. "You actually did it." "We did it," Doyen corrected. Ji-won's research made the difference. Ji-won was crying, he realized. Tears ran down her face as she smiled. "I cannot believe it. I cannot believe you survived." "Neither can I," Doyen admitted. The medical team wanted to take him to the hospital immediately, but Doyen resisted. He looked back at Thelvax, who was being supported by 2 guards. "I need to speak with the commander," Doyen said. He walked over, each step a challenge. Thelvax looked at him approaching and straightened slightly, trying to regain some dignity. Commander, Doyen said, you fought with great skill. I was fortunate to survive. Fortune had nothing to do with it, Thelvax replied. You fought with a strategy I had never encountered. You used your weaknesses as weapons. You turned survival itself into a combat technique. My people have had to, Doyen said. We are not the strongest in the galaxy. We have to find other ways. Thelvax was silent for a moment. I have learned something today. Strength is not everything, neither is skill. Sometimes simple refusal to surrender is the greatest weapon of all. Yes, Doyen agreed. I would like to speak with you again, Thelvax said, when we have both recovered. I want to understand your fighting style better. I want to learn from it. I would be honored, Doyen said. They stood there for a moment, two warriors from different worlds, as both battered and exhausted, both having learned something about the nature of combat and courage. Then the medical teams insisted on separating them. Doyen was taken to one transport, Thelvax to another. As they left the arena, the crowd was still cheering, still processing what they had witnessed. Humanity had just proven something important. They were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest or the most skilled, but they were stubborn, they were persistent, they refused to quit, and in a galaxy full of superior physical specimens, that might be the most dangerous quality of all. The medical facility was clean and efficient. Valak's doctors moved quickly around Doyen, treating his injuries with professional care. They sealed the cuts on his arms and legs with some kind of adhesive spray that tingled when applied. They wrapped his ribs, which were bruised but not broken. They gave him something to drink that tasted like metal, but made the pain fade to a dull ache. Through the window of his room, Doyen could see the city. The capital of the Valak's empire stretched to the horizon, all gleaming towers and flowing architecture. Somewhere out there, billions of beings had just watched him fight. The broadcast had gone out across the empire, maybe even beyond. What would they think? What would they say about the human who defeated Commander Thelvax? You need to rest, said the doctor, a female Valak with pale green scales and kind eyes. Your body has been through significant trauma. Humans heal slower than Valaks, yes? Yes, Doyen confirmed. Why, we need more time. Then you will stay here at least 2 days for observation. She made notes on a medical tablet. You are fortunate. Many of these wounds could have been much worse. I know, Doyen said quietly. After the doctor left, Doyen lay back on the bed and closed his eyes. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving behind exhaustion so deep it felt like gravity pulling him down. He had not realized how tired he was during the fight. His body had simply kept moving, kept fighting, driven by will alone. Now that it was over, everything hurt. There was a soft knock on the door. Park Ji-won entered, carrying a data tablet and looking more composed than she had in the arena. I thought you would want to see this, she said, handing him the tablet. On the screen was a news feed. In the headline read, Human defeats Royal Guard commander in historic duel. Below it, the video showed highlights from the fight. Doyen watched himself retreating, dodging, surviving strike after strike. He looked desperate and exhausted, but he also looked determined. Even through the screen, you could see that he was not going to quit. It is everywhere, Yuan said. Every news network in the empire is covering it. Some are calling it the greatest upset in dueling history. Others are analyzing your fighting style, trying to understand how you did it. What are they saying about humanity? Doyen asked. Ji-won scrolled through more headlines. Mixed reactions. Some are impressed. They are calling humans surprisingly resilient. Others are angry, saying you fought dishonorably. I expected that. But look at this one, Ji-won said, pointing to an article. It is from the Krill Collective. They are praising your tactical approach. They are saying humans think differently than warrior species, and that difference makes us dangerous. Doyen read the article. The Krill were an insectoid species known for their analytical thinking. They had watched the duel and seen what others missed. They saw that Doyen had turned human weaknesses into advantages, that he had used endurance as a weapon. Dangerous in a good way, I hope, Doyen said. Time will tell, Ji-won replied. But one thing is certain. No one in this galaxy will underestimate humans again, at least not as easily. Over the next few hours, more visitors came. Ambassador Kang arrived with official messages from Earth Command. They were pleased, she said, though that was an understatement. Earth's diplomatic standing had improved dramatically overnight. 3 different species had already reached out about potential alliances. You have changed everything, Kang said, sitting beside his bed. In one afternoon, you did what years of diplomacy could not. You made humanity respected. I just survived a fight, Doyen said. You proved we are not weak. That is everything. Later, a delegation from the Emperor's court arrived. They brought formal acknowledgement of Doyen's victory and an invitation to meet with the Emperor personally once he had recovered. His Majesty wishes to discuss the implications of your victory, the lead diplomat said, and to offer his personal congratulations. I am honored, Doyen said, because it seemed like the right thing to say. What he really felt was tired and sore, and slightly overwhelmed by how much his life had changed in a few hours. That evening, as the suns were setting outside his window, there was another knock. This time it was Thelvax. The commander looked different. He was dressed in simple civilian clothes and his scales had regained some of their color. But there was something else different too. The arrogance that had radiated from him during their first meeting was gone. In its place was something quieter, something more thoughtful. May I enter? Thelvax asked. Of course, Doyen said. Thelvax came in and stood beside the bed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable exactly, but it was weighted with everything that had happened between them. How are your arms? Doyen asked finally. Fully recovered, Thelvax said, flexing his fingers. The doctors say there is no permanent damage. The nerve strike you used was precise. I am glad. Are you? Thelvax asked. You could have crippled me permanently, ended my career. You chose not to. Ending your career was not my goal. Thelvax pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. I have been thinking about our fight, replaying it in my mind, trying to understand what went wrong. Nothing went wrong, Doyen said. You fought exactly as you were trained to fight. It is just that I fought differently than you expected. Yes, Thelvax agreed. That is what troubles me. I have studied combat my entire life. I have fought opponents from dozens of species. But I have never encountered a strategy like yours. Because most species try to match Valak's strength, Doyen said. They think they can overpower you if they are skilled enough. But humans cannot do that. We have to find other ways. Your way was to suffer, Thelvax said bluntly. To endure pain and keep fighting through it. To turn your own fragility into a weapon by outlasting me. Yes, that is not how warriors are supposed to fight. Maybe not Valak's warriors, Doyen said. But human warriors have different traditions. We are persistence hunters. We chase our prey until it collapses. We do not give up. Thelvax was quiet for a long time, processing this. I called you a coward in the arena. I said you fought without honor. I was wrong. You fought according to your understanding of honor, Doyen said. Yak, I fought according to mine. Neither is wrong. They are just different. I am not used to being wrong, Thelvax admitted. I am not used to losing. In 200 duels, you are the first opponent to defeat me. I did not defeat you in skill or strength, Doyen said. I just lasted longer. That is a kind of strength, Thelvax said. One I did not recognize until today. Mental strength, the will to continue when your body wants to quit. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. The Royal Guard trains for physical perfection. We make our bodies into weapons. But we do not train for what happens when the body fails, when exhaustion sets in, when pain becomes overwhelming. We assume that superior skill and strength will always win before those factors become relevant. But they do become relevant, Doyen said, if the fight lasts long enough. Yep, Thelvax said. You taught me that. I have already spoken with the Master of the Guard. I am proposing new training methods, endurance exercises, mental conditioning. We have much to learn from human combat techniques. Doyen was surprised. You want to adopt human methods? I want to adopt effective methods, Thelvax corrected. If today proved anything, it is that the Royal Guard has become too confident in our traditional ways. We have grown complacent. You exposed that weakness. He turned back to Doyen. I came here to thank you for that, and to apologize for underestimating you and your species. Apology accepted, Doyen said. I also came to offer something, Thelvax said. When you have recovered, I would like to train with you. to learn your fighting philosophy. In exchange, I can teach you proper blade technique. Not that you need it, apparently, but it might be useful. I would like that, Doyen said sincerely. Thelvax nodded. Good. Then we will begin when you are ready. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. I have been commander of the Royal Guard for 20 years. In that time, I have known many warriors. Some were skilled, some were brave, but none impressed me as much as you did today. Thank you, Doyen said, not sure what else to say. You showed me that there are many kinds of strength, many ways to fight, many paths to victory. That is a valuable lesson, one I will not forget. After Thelvax left, Doyen sat in silence for a while. The sun had set completely now and the city lights were coming on, creating patterns of illumination across the landscape. He thought about the duel, about how close he had come to dying, about all the cuts and bruises that still covered his body, about the moments when he had wanted to give up but forced himself to keep going. It had been worth it, not for the glory or the fame or even the respect, though those were nice. It had been worth it because he had proven something to himself. He could survive. He could face impossible odds and come through. He could take everything his body and mind could handle and then push just a little further. That was what being human meant, not being the strongest or the fastest, but being stubborn enough to refuse defeat. His communicator chimed. It was a message from Earth Command. They wanted a full report on the duel, his tactics, and the physiological data on Valak's weaknesses. They wanted to know everything he had learned. They were already thinking about how to use this victory, how to build on it, how to turn one man's survival into a foundation for humanity's future in the galaxy. Doyen smiled despite his exhaustion. Let them plan. Let them strategize. He had done his part. He had shown the galaxy that humans do not quit. Everything else would follow from that. Outside his window, the city sparkled with light. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were talking about what they had witnessed today. Some with respect, some with fear, some with curiosity about what humanity would do next. Doyen did not know what came next, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever challenges the future held, humanity would face them. They would adapt. They would persist. They would survive. Just like they always had. 3 days after the duel, Doyen was released from the medical facility. The doctors were amazed at how quickly he was healing. What they did not understand was that humans had evolved to recover from injury efficiently. It was part of that same persistence that had helped him survive the fight. He still hurt. His ribs were tender, and his left arm was stiff where Thelvax had cut him. But he could move. He could function. That was enough. Ambassador Kang had arranged a suite for him in the diplomatic quarter of the palace. It was much nicer than his previous accommodations. Large windows overlooked the gardens, and there was actual furniture instead of the basic setup he had before. You are a celebrity now, Kang explained as she showed him around. The Valak's Emperor has decreed that you be given quarters appropriate to your status. My status? As the human who defeated the Royal Guard commander, she said. That carries weight here. A lot of weight. She was not exaggerating. Everywhere Doyen went in the palace, Valak's guards would stop and salute him. Diplomats from other species wanted to introduce themselves. Even servants treated him with a respect he had never experienced before. It was uncomfortable. He had not fought for fame or status. He had fought to survive and to prove a point. But apparently the galaxy had decided to make him into something more. Park Ji-won brought him the latest news reports. The duel was still dominating galactic media. Analysis programs debated his tactics. Sports commentators argued about whether his fighting style was legitimate or dishonest. Philosophers discussed what the duel meant for the concept of honor. There is even a betting market now, Ji-won said, showing him a financial report. People are wagering on whether you will accept more duel challenges. I will not, Doyen said immediately. Once was enough. You might not have a choice. I have received 17 formal challenge requests already. Commanders from various species want to test themselves against you. Doyen rubbed his eyes. Can I refuse them? Yes, technically, but each refusal will damage your reputation, and by extension, humanity's reputation. So I am trapped. Welcome to being famous, Ji-won said with a slight smile. At least the Emperor wants to meet with you tomorrow. That should be interesting. The meeting with the Emperor was scheduled for mid-morning. Doyen dressed in his formal Earth uniform and made sure everything was perfect. You did not meet a galactic ruler looking sloppy. Ambassador Kang accompanied him to the throne room. The chamber was enormous, with pillars carved from single pieces of stone reaching up to a vaulted ceiling. At the far end sat the Emperor on a throne made of polished black metal. Emperor Velrock was older than Doyen had expected. His scales were dark gray, almost black, and marked with age. But his eyes were sharp and intelligent. He wore simple robes rather than elaborate ceremonial dress, which somehow made him more intimidating rather than less. Captain Han Doyen of Earth, the Emperor said as Doyen approached. His voice was deep and carried easily through the chamber. Approach and be recognized. Doyen walked forward and bowed in the Valak style, fist over heart. Your Majesty, I am honored to meet you. The honor is mine, the Emperor said. It is not often that I witness such a remarkable display of combat philosophy. He gestured for Doyen to rise. I have watched the recording of your duel a dozen times. Each viewing reveals something new. You fought with a strategy I have never encountered in all my years. I fought to survive, Your Majesty. Nothing more. Nothing more? The Emperor smiled. You fundamentally challenged our understanding of what makes a warrior effective. You proved that there are paths to victory beyond strength and skill. Honor that is quite significant. He stood from his throne and walked down to stand before Doyen. Up close, the Emperor was tall, but not as massive as Thelvax. Age had made him leaner, though still formidable. Tell me, Captain, what do you think your victory means for relations between our species? Doyen chose his words carefully. I think it shows that humans and Valaks can learn from each other, that neither of us has a monopoly on combat effectiveness or warrior philosophy. A diplomatic answer, the Emperor said, but not wrong. Commander Thelvax has already proposed changes to Royal Guard training based on what he learned from you. He speaks quite highly of your abilities. The commander is generous, Doyen said. The commander is honest, the Emperor corrected. He knows he was defeated fairly. He respects that. The Emperor walked back to his throne and sat down. I am prepared to offer humanity a formal alliance, trade agreements, military cooperation, cultural exchange. Your species has proven itself worthy of such consideration. Ambassador Kang stepped forward. Your Majesty, we would be honored to discuss such an arrangement. Good, the Emperor said. We will begin negotiations immediately, but I have one condition. What condition? Kang asked. The Emperor looked at Doyen. I want Captain Doyen to remain here as military liaison. He will work with Commander Thelvax to develop joint training programs. He will help our warriors understand human combat techniques. Your Majesty, Doyen said, I am not sure I am qualified for such a role. You defeated my best warrior, the Emperor said flatly. You are qualified. There was no arguing with that logic. Over the following weeks, Doyen settled into his new role. He spent his mornings working with Thelvax and the Royal Guard, teaching them about endurance training and persistence tactics. The afternoons were devoted to diplomatic meetings and cultural exchanges. It was strange being both a symbol and a teacher. The Valak's warriors treated him with a respect that bordered on reverence. Some of them were eager to learn. Others were skeptical, believing that Valak's methods were superior. Those skeptics usually changed their minds after trying to match Doyen in endurance exercises. This is torture, complained one young guard after a 3-hour training session. He was lying on the ground, breathing hard. How can your species endure this? Practice, Doyen said. He was also tired, but he hid it better. Humans train from a young age to push through discomfort. We learn that pain is temporary, but quitting is permanent. But why? Another guard asked. Why put yourself through such suffering? Because one day you might face an opponent stronger than you, Doyen explained. Faster than you, more skilled than you. When that happens, endurance might be your only advantage. Would you rather have it and not need it, or need it and not have it? The guards had no answer to that. Thelvax watched these sessions with great interest. He participated too, pushing himself through the same exercises he asked his warriors to complete. The commander was discovering that he had limits he had never tested before. I ran for 2 hours this morning, he told Doyen one day after training, without stopping. I have never done such a thing before. How did it feel? Doyen asked. Terrible, Thelvax admitted. My legs were screaming. My lungs burned. I wanted to stop after the first 10 minutes. But you did not stop. No, Thelvax said, and there was pride in his voice. I did not stop. I kept going. I proved to myself that I could. That is the point, Doyen said. Every time you push past what you think are your limits, those limits expand. Eventually, what once seemed impossible becomes routine. Is that how humans think? Thelvax asked. Everything is about pushing limits? Not everything, Doyen said. But in combat, yes. We assume our enemy will be better than us in some way. So we compensate by being more stubborn. By refusing to quit when a smarter person would. Thelvax laughed. There is a fine line between courage and stupidity. Yes, Doyen agreed. We walk that line often. The training programs were not just about physical endurance. Doyen also taught mental conditioning techniques, how to manage pain without letting it control you, how to stay focused when exhausted, how to find the will to continue when everything hurt. These were skills that did not come naturally to Valak's warriors. They were accustomed to short, decisive battles. The idea of a fight lasting hours, requiring mental stamina as much as physical strength, was foreign to them, but they learned. One afternoon, Park Ji-won came to watch a training session. She stood at the edge of the practice field observing as Doyen put a squad of royal guards through endurance drills. They are actually listening to you, she said afterward, Oni clearly impressed. I thought there would be more resistance. There was at first, Doyen admitted, but after the duel, they could not deny the effectiveness of these techniques. Results are hard to argue with. You have changed them, Ji-won observed. The entire royal guard is different now than it was a month ago. They changed themselves, Doyen corrected. I just showed them another way. That evening, Doyen received a message from Earth Command. They wanted him to return home. There were ceremonies planned, awards to be given, media interviews to conduct. He had become a symbol for all of humanity, and they wanted to use that. Doyen stared at the message for a long time. Part of him wanted to go back, to see Earth again, to rest and recover from everything that had happened. But another part of him knew his work here was not finished. The training programs were just beginning. The alliance between Earth and the Valak's Empire was still fragile. If he left now, he would be abandoning something important. He composed a reply to Earth Command, explaining his reasoning. He would return eventually, he wrote, but not yet. There was still too much to do here. The response came quickly. Earth Command was not happy, but they understood. They gave him 6 more months, then he would have to come home. 6 months. It would have to be enough. That night, unable to sleep, Doyen walked through the palace gardens. The night air was cool and the multiple moons of the Valak's homeworld cast strange shadows across the pass. He found Thelvax sitting on a bench near a fountain, apparently unable to sleep as well. May I join you? Doyen asked. Please, Thelvax said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the water. I have been thinking about honor, Thelvax said eventually, about what it means to be a warrior. And what have you concluded? Doyen asked. That I was wrong about many things, Thelvax said. I thought honor meant fighting in a specific way, following specific rules, pursuing glory above all else. But you showed me that honor can take different forms. How so? You fought to protect your species' reputation, Thelvax said. You endured pain and suffering not for personal glory, but because someone had to. You showed mercy when you could have been ruthless. Those are honorable acts, even if they do not fit traditional Valak's definitions. Thank you, Doyen said. When I am curious about something, Thelvax continued, during the fight, when you could have ended me, you did not. Why? Doyen thought about his answer. Because killing you would have proven nothing. It would have made me a victor, but not a better warrior. And it would have made you a cautionary tale instead of what you are now. Which is? A teacher, Doyen said. Someone who learned from defeat and became stronger for it. That matters more than any victory. Thelvax was quiet for a moment. You are wise beyond your years, human. I am just stubborn, Doyen said with a smile. There is a difference. They sat together until the moon set and the first sun began to rise. 2 warriors from different worlds, brought together by conflict, now bound by mutual respect. The galaxy was changing, slowly perhaps, but definitely changing. And humanity was part of that change now. Not as the weak newcomers, but as equals, as partners, as warriors who refused to quit. 6 months passed quickly. Doyen fell into a routine that felt almost normal, despite being on an alien world surrounded by beings who could crush him without effort. Every morning he ran with the Royal Guard. Every afternoon he taught classes on human combat philosophy. Every evening he worked with Ambassador Kang on the ongoing alliance negotiations. The changes in the Royal Guard were remarkable. What had started as curiosity about human methods had become genuine integration. The warriors still trained in traditional Valix techniques, but now they also practiced endurance drills. They learned mental conditioning. They studied how to fight when exhausted, when injured. Kakich when every advantage had been stripped away. Commander Thelvax had become Doyen's closest ally in this transformation. The two of them would often train together after the regular sessions, pushing each other to improve. Thelvax taught Doyen proper blade technique, correcting the clumsy self-defense that had barely kept him alive during the duel. In exchange, Doyen taught the commander how to manage fatigue and maintain focus through extended combat. "You move better now," Thelvax observed one afternoon as they sparred with practice blades. "More efficient, less wasted motion." "I had a good teacher," Doyen replied, deflecting a strike and countering with one of his own. Thelvax parried easily. "And I have learned that there is more to combat than I ever realized. My warriors are stronger now than they have ever been. Not because their muscles grew, but because their minds did." The alliance negotiations were progressing well too. Earth and the Valix Empire had signed preliminary agreements on trade and cultural exchange. Military cooperation was being discussed, though nothing had been finalized yet. The galaxy was watching these developments with great interest. Other species had begun reaching out to humanity as well. The Krill Collective proposed a research partnership to study human endurance capabilities. The Mirani Federation, a coalition of aquatic species, wanted to establish diplomatic relations. Even the reclusive Thorn Empire sent observers to watch the human-Valix cooperation. "You started something," Ambassador Kang told Doyen during one of their briefing sessions. "By winning that duel, you changed how the entire galaxy sees us. We are not the weak newcomers anymore. We are the persistent ones, the survivors." "Is that good?" Doyen asked. "It is better than being ignored," Kang said, "though it comes with its own challenges. Several species now want to test themselves against humans. They want to see if we are really as stubborn as the stories claim. That could be dangerous." "Yes," Kang agreed, "which is why Earth Command wants you home. They need you to help train the next generation of human warriors, to teach them what you have learned here." Doyen had known this was coming. His 6 months were almost up. Soon he would have to leave the Valix homeworld and return to Earth. The thought filled him with mixed emotions. He missed home, missed familiar foods and familiar faces, but he had also built something here, something important. On his last week, the Emperor summoned him for a private audience. Doyen went alone this time, without Ambassador Kang or any other officials. The Emperor received him in a smaller chamber, more intimate than the Grand Throne Room. They sat across from each other at a simple table. "You are leaving us soon," the Emperor said. It was not a question. "Yes, Your Majesty. Earth Command has ordered my return." "That is unfortunate. You have done good work here, important work." "Thank you, Your Majesty." The Emperor poured 2 cups of a Valix drink, something like tea but with a spicy edge. He offered one to Doyen. "I want to tell you something," the Emperor said. "Something I have not shared with anyone else. When Commander Thelvax first challenged you, I expected you to refuse. When you accepted, now I assumed you were either very brave or very foolish." "Perhaps both," Doyen suggested. The Emperor smiled. "Perhaps. But what you did in that arena changed my perspective on many things. For centuries, my people have believed that strength and skill are the ultimate measures of worth, that the strong deserve to rule and the weak deserve to serve." He sipped his drink. "You showed us that this belief is incomplete, that there are other kinds of strength, other paths to victory, other ways to prove one's worth." "I only did what I had to do," Doyen said. "Yes," the Emperor agreed. "But in doing so, you taught an entire empire to question its assumptions. That is a rare gift." He reached into his robes and pulled out a small object. It was a medal similar to the ones Thelvax wore, but different in design. The metal was a dark blue that seemed to shift color in the light. This is the Star of Perseverance, the Emperor said. It is awarded to warriors who demonstrate exceptional endurance and will. It has not been given to anyone in 40 years. I want you to have it. Duyun took the medal carefully. It was heavier than it looked. Your Majesty, I do not know what to say. Say you will remember us, the Emperor said. Say that when you return to Earth and train your people, you will teach them what you learned here. That cooperation between species is possible, that we can learn from each other. I will, Duyun promised. I will never forget this. On his final day, the entire royal guard assembled to see him off. They stood in perfect formation in the palace courtyard, every warrior in full ceremonial armor. Commander Thelvax stood at their head. As Duyun approached, Thelvax raised his hand in the Valak salute, fist over heart. The entire guard followed suit, the movement synchronized and precise. Captain Han Duyun of Earth, Thelvax said formally, you came to our world as a stranger. You leave as a brother in arms. You have our respect and our friendship. May your path be honorable and your battles victorious. Thank you, Commander, Duyun said. He returned the salute. You have taught me much. I will carry those lessons with me always. Thelvax stepped forward and clasped Duyun's shoulder. If you ever need the Royal Guard, you have only to call. We stand with you. We stand with humanity. It was a powerful statement. The Royal Guard had never pledged support to an alien species before, but they were doing it now, in front of witnesses, making it official. Park Jawan was crying again. She seemed to do that a lot at important moments. Ambassador Kang stood beside her, looking proud and sad at the same time. The transport shuttle was waiting, its engines already warming up. Duyun walked toward it, then paused and looked back at the assembled warriors. Keep training, he called out to them. Keep pushing your limits. And remember, pain is temporary, but quitting is permanent. A few of the younger guards smiled at that. It had become something of a motto during his time there. The flight back to Earth took 3 weeks. Duyun spent most of it writing reports, preparing briefings, and thinking about what came next. He watched recordings of his duel, studying it with the perspective that time and training had given him. He could see his mistakes now, the moments where better technique might have ended the fight sooner. But he could also see what he had done right, the constant movement, the refusal to engage on Thelvax's terms, the patience to wait for the right moment. Those were the things that had kept him alive. When the shuttle finally entered Earth's atmosphere, Duyun felt a surge of emotion he had not expected. It was home, his home, the blue and green planet where humanity had evolved, where they had learned to be stubborn survivors in a dangerous world. The landing site was packed with people, media crews, government officials, military brass, and regular citizens, thousands of them, who had come to see the human who had defeated an alien warrior. As Duyun stepped off the shuttle, the crowd erupted in cheers. He was uncomfortable with the attention, but he understood what it meant. These people were not just cheering for him, they were cheering for what he represented. Proof that humans belonged in the galaxy. Proof that they could compete with species far stronger than themselves. Proof that stubbornness and persistence could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. The weeks that followed were exhausting. Ceremonies, interviews, meetings. Everyone wanted to hear the story of the duel. Everyone wanted to know how he had done it. Duyun told them the truth. He had not been stronger or faster or more skilled. He had simply refused to quit. He had endured when his body screamed at him to stop. He had kept fighting when every instinct told him to yield. That was the human advantage. Not superior technology or natural weapons or faster reflexes. Just the simple, stubborn refusal to give up. Earth Command assigned him to their new Xenocombat Training Division. His job was to develop programs teaching human soldiers how to fight alien opponents, how to find weaknesses in superior species, how to turn human limitations into advantages. It was important work, essential work, because the galaxy was full of dangers, and humanity needed to be ready. But Duyun never forgot what the Emperor had told him. That cooperation was possible. That species could learn from each other. That strength came in many forms. He trained his students hard, teaching them endurance and mental toughness and tactical thinking. But he also taught them respect. Respect for their opponents. respect for different fighting philosophies, respect for the idea that there was always more to learn. Never underestimate your enemy, he told every class, but also never assume that superior strength guarantees victory. The fight is not over until one side quits, and if you make sure that side is never you, then you have already won half the battle. Messages came regularly from the Valak's homeworld. Thelvax kept him updated on the progress of the Royal Guard's training programs. The warriors were achieving endurance levels previously thought impossible for their species. They were learning to fight through exhaustion, to push past pain, to embrace the human philosophy of persistence. Other species were taking notice. The Krill had begun incorporating endurance training into their military academies. The Mirani were studying human pain management techniques. And even the proud Thorn Empire had sent observers to learn about these methods. Humanity's reputation continued to grow, not as the strongest species or the most advanced, but as the ones who did not quit, as the survivors, as the persistent ones. And it all started with one duel, one human who was challenged and simply said, "I agree." Years later, when Doyen was older and his active combat days were behind him, he would sometimes watch the recording of that duel. He would see himself, younger and terrified but determined, facing down an opponent he had no business challenging. And he would remember what he had learned that day. That strength was not everything. That skill was not everything. That sometimes the only thing that mattered was the refusal to surrender. The galaxy was vast and full of species more powerful than humanity. But none of them were more stubborn. None of them were better at enduring hardship and continuing forward anyway. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not weapons or technology or military might. Just the simple demonstration that persistence, properly applied, could overcome almost anything. And the willingness to prove it again and again, no matter the odds. Because that was what humans did. They survived, they endured, they refused to quit. It was their greatest weakness and their greatest strength. And in a galaxy full of superior physical specimens, it turned out to be exactly what they needed. Doyen touched the star of perseverance that he still wore on his uniform, the medal from the Valak's Emperor, a reminder of the day he had changed everything. Not by being the strongest or the fastest or the most skilled, but by simply refusing to give up. That was the lesson. That was what humanity brought to the galaxy. And it was a lesson that would echo across the stars for generations to come.